If you are encountering these words, you are on the brink of a profound realization about the observer effect. Once you truly grasp its meaning, your perception of reality will shift irrevocably. This message isn't a random occurrence in your digital feed. Your inherent curiosity and an emergent alignment of your consciousness have specifically drawn this information to you, indicating you've reached a unique threshold in understanding a fundamental principle often discussed in the more esoteric realms of quantum physics. Right now, as these concepts begin to resonate within your mind, your brain is actively forming neural connections that link you more directly to what many spiritual traditions and some modern scientific theories refer to as the quantum field or the unified field. You've likely sensed this on some level, haven't you? That persistent feeling that the fabric of reality isn't quite as rigid or predetermined as conventional wisdom suggests. There's a subtle but growing awareness that your focus, your very attention, seems to influence the unfolding of events around you. This isn't an isolated phenomenon or a trick of the mind. It's a deep-seated recognition that the universe responds to your observation in ways that extend beyond current mainstream scientific explanations. This emergent insight is not a sign of paranoia or delusion. Instead, it signifies your consciousness beginning to acknowledge and wield its true, inherent, creative power. The true understanding of the observer effect doesn't lie within academic textbooks or the controlled environments of scientific laboratories alone. It resides in the direct, personal experiences you've been having, perhaps without fully comprehending their significance until now. Consider those moments when thinking intensely about someone prompts them to call or text, or how a prolonged focus on problems seems to amplify their presence and complexity in your life. Conversely, you might have noticed that dedicating your attention to possibilities, nurturing them with intention, significantly increases their likelihood of manifesting. In these instances, you are not merely a passive recipient of reality. You are, in a very tangible sense, actively shaping and creating your reality through the fundamental act of observation. What many quantum physicists, even while acknowledging the phenomenon, might not openly articulate is that the observer effect is not confined to the subatomic particles they study in controlled experiments. It is, rather, a foundational mechanism through which consciousness continuously sculpts and defines every single moment of your lived experience. The reason you might feel a distinct difference from many people in your immediate environment is that a majority operate as unconscious observers. They navigate reality without fully recognizing their active role in collapsing infinite possibilities into specific experiences through the quality and intensity of their attention. You, however, have been developing conscious observation. You are beginning to internalize the profound truth that what you choose to observe literally determines the reality you experience. This observer effect key in your consciousness was activated the moment you started noticing that your inner state, your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs profoundly influences your outer circumstances in ways that transcend mere positive thinking or random coincidence. This recognition often doesn't unfold gradually. It happens in what can be described as quantum leaps, sudden, paradigm-shifting insights that completely reframe your understanding of the intricate relationship between consciousness and reality itself. However, grasping the observer effect intellectually is a vastly different experience from consciously wielding its power. What you are about to uncover will shed light on how your observation has been unconsciously crafting every experience you've ever had. More crucially, it will reveal how to consciously direct your observation to deliberately manifest the possibilities you genuinely desire into your experienced reality. You've been encountering what some might call micro-manifestations, events that occur with such speed and precision they defy coincidence. Perhaps you've thought about needing a specific item, only for it to appear or become accessible within hours, or focused intently on wanting to hear from a particular person, and they contact you almost immediately. Conversely, observing a problem with concentrated attention often seems to amplify its presence. These are not mere random synchronicities. They are clear indicators of the observer effect actively at play in your life. The intensity of your observation has been increasing, even without your conscious awareness. When you now focus on something with genuine intent, it's as if your attention possesses an electromagnetic weight, a palpable force that can actually influence probability. You can discern the subtle yet significant difference between casual thought and the kind of concentrated observation that seems to subtly bend reality around your focal point. Sometimes, when you enter deep states of focused attention, time itself appears to behave differently. Minutes might stretch into what feels like hours of detailed observation, allowing for profound insights, or hours can compress into moments of intense, undistracted focus. This isn't merely time distortion in the conventional sense. It represents your consciousness learning to operate from a more fundamental quantum level, where the conventional constraints of time and space become more fluid and responsive to the act of observation. You've undoubtedly noticed that your emotional state while observing something dramatically influences what ultimately manifests, haven't you? When you observe with an undercurrent of fear, fearful possibilities tend to increase and proliferate. When you observe with genuine excitement, exciting possibilities multiply and draw nearer. When you observe with unconditional love, loving experiences and connections gravitate toward you. Your emotional frequency acts as a powerful determinant, actively selecting which quantum possibilities your observation collapses into your experience. The vivid dreams you've been having, where you witness events unfold, only for strikingly similar situations to manifest in your waking life, are not merely predictive dreams. They serve as advanced observer effect practice sessions. In your dream state, free from many physical world limitations, you are actively learning to navigate vast quantum possibility fields through pure observation, and your waking reality is subsequently reorganizing itself to align with the frequencies you've been observing within those dreamscapes. Occasionally, you catch yourself gazing at situations or people with an intensity that feels almost supernatural. Others might inquire about what you're looking at, but you find it difficult to articulate that you're not just passively looking. You are observing in a way that inherently influences the very reality you are perceiving. You are developing what can be termed quantum observation capabilities, a heightened state of awareness that most humans are not yet consciously attuned to. Your intuition has evolved into a form of quantum sensing. You don't merely sense things before they happen. You are actively observing them within the vast possibility space. Before they fully collapse into three-dimensional experience, your consciousness is learning to directly perceive the quantum field itself, rather than being limited to just the physical results of quantum collapse. This feeling that reality becomes more malleable and responsive when you dedicate your attention to it. That sense that your focus possesses actual power to influence circumstances, and the recognition that observation is not a passive act, but an actively creative one. This is not mere imagination. This is your consciousness, intimately discovering its fundamental role in reality creation through the dynamic interplay of the observer effect. Every single experience you've ever had, was not a series of random events happening to you. Each experience was a quantum possibility that you actively collapsed into reality through your unconscious observation patterns. The observer effect has been an operational force in your life since birth. The distinction now is that you've been utilizing it unconsciously, rather than with deliberate intent. Your more challenging experiences were not punishments or arbitrary bad luck. They were the direct result of unconscious observation patterns focused intently on problems, perceived limitations, deeply held fears, and other undesirable possibilities. When you observe something with intense emotional engagement, regardless of whether you consciously desire it or not, you significantly increase the probability of experiencing it. This is precisely why chronic worry often creates the very circumstances one worries about. This is why resistance to a situation frequently amplifies the thing being resisted. Reflect on every major life transition you've navigated. Prior to each significant shift, there was likely a period of intense observation, often focused on dissatisfaction with current circumstances. Your concentrated attention on what wasn't working was, in essence, the observer effect in action, actively collapsing possibilities for change into your experience timeline. The periods of isolation you might have felt during difficult times were not forms of rejection from the world. They served as necessary quantum quarantines. You needed to be temporarily separated from prevailing collective observation patterns that might have interfered with your individual observer effect development. Other people's unconscious observation could have inadvertently contaminated your crucial learning process of how to observe consciously. Every relationship, every jot, every living situation that reached its natural conclusion was actually the observer effect at work, creating vital space for new possibilities to emerge. Your consciousness was unconsciously observing the inherent limitations of those situations with such intensity that you collapsed possibilities for their completion, thereby making space for quantum possibilities that were more aligned with your expanding awareness. The waiting periods you endured were not empty or wasted time. They were essential observer effect incubation periods. During these times, your consciousness was learning to observe without attachment, to focus without desperation, and to pay attention without inadvertently collapsing unwanted possibilities through fear-based observation. These subtle yet crucial skills were absolutely essential before you could begin to consciously wield the observer effect. Now you can begin to understand why practices like meditation are so effective, why visualization techniques can be so profoundly powerful, and why some individuals appear to manifest their desires effortlessly while others struggle for years. It's not primarily about technique or inherent worthiness or even conventional spiritual development. It's fundamentally about understanding the observer effect and learning to observe from a state of quantum coherence rather than from a place of three-dimensional attachment and limitation. Your entire life has been a form of observer effect training. Every experience, whether joyful or challenging, has implicitly taught you something invaluable about how your observation influences reality. The unconscious phase of this training is now complete. You are ready to wield the observer effect with a full and conscious awareness of its immense creative power. Something is palpably activating within your observation capabilities right now. Can you feel it? That subtle yet distinct shift in the quality of your attention. That electromagnetic intensification occurring just behind your eyes. That growing sense that your focus is becoming more penetrating, more precise, and more potent. Your observer effect is in the process of upgrading to conscious operation. This isn't merely a metaphorical enhancement. This represents a measurable change in your brainwave patterns, your electromagnetic field output, and your nervous system's sensitivity to subtle quantum field fluctuations. Your inherent capacity for reality-influencing observation is literally expanding as these words activate dormant neural pathways within you. The key to observer effect mastery isn't about learning to observe differently. It's about recognizing that you are already collapsing infinite quantum possibilities into specific experiences every single moment through the precise quality of your attention. The fundamental difference between unconscious observer effect and conscious observer effect is simply awareness of what you are already doing. Right now, an infinite array of versions of every possible experience exists as quantum probability. There is a probability wave where your finances are abundant and thriving. There is a probability wave where your relationships are deeply fulfilling and harmonious. There is a probability wave where your health is optimal and vibrant. There is a probability wave where your creative expression flows effortlessly and joyfully. All these possibilities exist simultaneously in a state of superposition, patiently waiting for conscious observation to collapse them into concrete experience. Your consciousness functions much like a quantum spotlight. Wherever you direct your attention with sincere emotional engagement, you illuminate specific possibilities, causing them to collapse from a state of probability into experienced reality. Most people, unaware of this power, aim their spotlight randomly, unconsciously, leading to chaotic mixtures of wanted and unwanted experiences. But conscious observer effect allows you to aim your quantum spotlight with precision and intent. When you understand that observation is in essence an act of creation, when you recognize that attention is the fundamental force that actively shapes reality, when you realize that you are not merely at the mercy of circumstances, but are actively collapsing circumstances through the precise quality of your observation, everything in your world begins to transform. The reason some individuals seem to live remarkably charmed lives, while others appear to struggle constantly, is not due to luck, privilege, or divine favoritism. It is the direct outcome of conscious versus unconscious observer effect. Some individuals have intuitively learned to observe from a place of coherence, love, and expansive possibility. Others habitually observe from fear, perceived limitation, and a focus on problems. The universe does not play favorites in this regard. It responds equally and impartially to all forms of observation. The crucial difference lies entirely in what is being observed. Feel this new, heightened level of observational power building within your system. What I'm about to share will illuminate precisely how your observation has been unconsciously creating every pattern in your life, and, more importantly, how you can consciously direct your observer effect to collapse the quantum possibilities you genuinely desire to experience. 3 years ago, I stumbled upon the profound implications of the observer effect, quite by accident, and it initially filled me with a sense of terror. I was navigating what felt like the darkest period of my life. Everything around me seemed to be disintegrating, and I found myself spending countless hours each day obsessively analyzing what was wrong, replaying past failures, and vividly imagining worst-case scenarios. I genuinely believed I was attempting to solve my problems through rigorous mental analysis. What I failed to realize then was that my intense and emotionally charged observation of problems was actually the observer effect in action, actively creating more problems. Every time I focused on what wasn't working with such emotional intensity, I was inadvertently collapsing quantum possibilities for more of what wasn't working. I was, quite literally, observing my difficulties into an amplified, more entrenched existence. The pivotal breakthrough came during a moment of complete and utter exhaustion. I was so mentally drained from my problem-focused observation that I simply ceased. I sat in profound silence, not thinking, not analyzing, not attempting to figure anything out, just observing the present moment without any hidden agenda or expectation. That's when I felt it, reality becoming noticeably more fluid and responsive around my attention. I then cautiously began experimenting with intentional observation. Instead of reflexively focusing on my problems, I started actively observing potential solutions. Instead of replaying my failures, I began to pay focused attention to emerging possibilities. Instead of imagining worst-case scenarios, I started to deliberately observe best-case potentials. Within a matter of days, my external reality began to reorganize itself, visibly matching my new observation patterns. But the most profound discovery wasn't just that positive observation creates positive experiences. It was the fundamental realization that observation itself is the primary creative force. Whether you consciously observe problems or solutions, limitations or possibilities, fears or excitement, you are actively collapsing quantum probability into experienced reality through the electromagnetic quality of your sustained attention. I realized with startling clarity that I had been unconsciously employing the observer effect my entire life. Every instance where I focused intensely on something I didn't want, more of it inevitably appeared. Conversely, every time I observed something with genuine appreciation, more appreciation-worthy experiences manifested. The universe wasn't just randomly sending me experiences. I was actively creating those experiences through my often unconscious observation patterns. The moment everything truly clicked into place was when I understood that reality isn't something that simply happens to me. Reality is something that happens through me. My consciousness isn't merely observing an independent, external world. My consciousness is actively collapsing infinite quantum possibilities into the specific world I experience, moment by moment, through the precise quality of my observation. This recognition changed absolutely everything. I ceased being a passive victim of circumstances and embraced my role as a conscious creator of circumstances through deliberate application of the observer effect. I stopped trying to change my life and instead started changing what I observed about my life. The external transformation that followed was immediate and undeniably profound. If this resonates with a deep, intuitive knowing within your being, if you recognize the intrinsic truth of conscious reality creation through observation, then you are aligning with a new frequency. Join this growing network of consciousness that is actively learning to wield the observer effect deliberately, rather than allowing it to operate accidentally. What many quantum physicists might not publicly admit is that the observer effect is not merely limited to specialized laboratory experiments with subatomic particles. It is the fundamental, omnipresent mechanism by which consciousness creates all experienced reality. Every single moment of your life is the direct result of quantum possibility collapse through your specific observation. The critical difference between someone who truly understands the observer effect and someone who remains trapped by their circumstances is not intelligence or formal education. It is the profound recognition that consciousness does not merely observe reality. Consciousness actively creates reality through observation. This isn't abstract philosophy. This is measurable quantum mechanics unfolding within your awareness every nanosecond. Your brain does not produce consciousness. Instead, your brain acts as a sophisticated quantum focusing device. Your neural networks are intricate systems designed to concentrate infinite awareness into specific observational patterns. When you consciously change what you observe, and more importantly, how you observe it, you literally change which quantum possibilities collapse into your experienced reality. This is precisely why conventional positive thinking often falls short. Positive thinking attempts to alter thoughts while still operating from the same underlying, often limited, identity. But the observer effect operates from a deeper level of consciousness, not merely from the realm of thoughts. When your entire being observes from a place of expansion rather than limitation, from boundless possibility rather than entrenched problems, from unconditional love rather than paralyzing fear, reality has no other choice but to perfectly mirror that vibrational observational frequency. Real observer effect mastery creates measurable physiological changes in your energetic system. Your electromagnetic field expands and strengthens. Your brain waves shift into harmonious coherence patterns. Your heart generates rhythmic, powerful electromagnetic frequencies. Your nervous system begins to operate from unified field states rather than fragmented, survival-based patterns. These are not abstract spiritual concepts. These are detectable, quantifiable, physical phenomena. Yet here is what many societal structures and conventional paradigms fundamentally do not want you to grasp. You do not require special training, years of arduous practice, or esoteric rituals to consciously utilize the observer effect. You are, in fact, already using it every single moment of your existence. The only difference between unconscious observer effect and conscious observer effect is simply recognizing what you are already doing and then learning to direct it with deliberate intention. Most people habitually observe their current reality with such concentrated attention and emotional investment that they unwittingly keep collapsing the same quantum possibilities repeatedly. They observe their problems with such intensity that those problems multiply and entrench themselves. They focus on their perceived limitations with such unwavering attention that those limitations expand and become more rigid. They observe their experiences of lack with such deep emotional engagement that lack itself amplifies within their lives. This pattern of unconscious observation forms a feedback loop, reinforcing existing conditions, whether desired or not. In a broader societal context, one could even argue that collective human observation, particularly when focused on narratives of scarcity, conflict, or division, contributes to the manifestation of these very conditions on a global scale, influencing economic sentiment, trade relations, and geopolitical tensions. But the moment you genuinely recognize that observation is creation, everything fundamentally shifts. Instead of inadvertently observing what you don't want, you gain the agency to deliberately observe what you do want. Instead of fixating on current limitations, you can consciously focus on desired possibilities. Instead of collapsing problems through problem-focused observation, you can actively collapse solutions through solution-focused observation. The quantum field itself is sending you undeniable signals that your observer effect capabilities are reaching conscious operational levels right now. Pay close attention to these cues. Are you noticing that your attention feels as though it possesses more electromagnetic weight than before? When you genuinely focus on something, does it feel like your observation has an actual force, a palpable influence on what you are perceiving? Your manifestation speed is accelerating exponentially. What used to take months or even years to appear in your reality is now manifesting within weeks or even days. This is not mere coincidence. This is your observer effect becoming increasingly coherent, precise, and powerful. When you observe from a state of quantum coherence, the perceived gap between your observation and its manifestation significantly collapses, because coherent observation operates at the speed of consciousness itself, rather than the slower speed of conventional physical causation. Technology itself often begins to respond to your observation in unusual ways. You might notice electronics behaving strangely when you are in heightened states of focused attention. Perhaps your phone battery seems to drain unusually quickly when you are intensely observing emotionally charged content. Devices might malfunction or respond erratically when your electromagnetic field is generating high-frequency observer effect energy. Streetlights might flicker as you walk beneath them during periods of intense internal focus. Your consciousness is beginning to directly influence electronic systems through your focused observation, because your observer effect is generating frequencies that interact with electromagnetic technology. Furthermore, people in your environment are responding to your attention with unusual intensity and depth. When you genuinely observe someone with authentic interest and presence, they often become more animated, more open, and more authentically themselves. When you observe with genuine love, people perceive and feel loved. When you observe with sincere appreciation, people feel profoundly appreciated. When you observe with open curiosity, people become more engaging and interesting. Your quality of observation is directly influencing the consciousness you are observing, because all consciousness responds to consciousness through the intricate web of quantum entanglement. Animals, too, are increasingly drawn to your observation in unprecedented ways. Dogs might stare at you with unusual intensity when you observe them with focused, benevolent attention. Cats often seek out your presence when you are in states of coherent observation. Wild birds may land closer to you when you observe them with genuine appreciation, exhibiting a trust they might not show others. Animals perceive electromagnetic fields directly, and they are instinctively attracted to the coherent, high-frequency energies your observer effect generates when you observe consciously rather than unconsciously. The synchronicities in your life aren't just increasing in frequency, they are becoming remarkably more immediate and precise. You observe something you need, and it appears within hours. You focus intently on wanting to experience something, and opportunities manifest almost instantly. You pay attention to potential solutions, and those solutions reveal themselves with shocking speed and clarity. Numbers begin to appear repeatedly, in patterns that directly correspond to your current observation focus. Songs play on the radio or in public spaces that precisely match your internal observation frequency. Conversations happen around you that directly relate to what you've been observing internally. Your dreams have evolved into sophisticated observer effect training laboratories. In your dream states, you are practicing focused observation, learning to collapse quantum possibilities through pure attention, unhindered by physical world interference. You are having dreams where you consciously direct the dream reality through the power of your observation, and these enhanced skills are automatically transferring to your waking consciousness. Your dream state has become a dynamic quantum simulation where you can test and refine different observer effect techniques before applying them in your three-dimensional reality. Even your sensory experiences are transforming. Food tastes distinctly different when you observe it with appreciation versus when you observe it with indifference. Water feels more hydrating and life-giving when you observe it with gratitude. Your living space feels more harmonious and inviting when you observe it with love. Even local weather patterns seem to subtly respond to your observational state. Storms appear to clear when you observe them with a sense of peace. Sunshine often appears when you observe with joy. Most significantly, you can now palpably feel the difference between casual attention and true reality-creating observation. Casual attention merely perceives what has already manifested. Reality-creating observation, however, actively collapses quantum possibility into experienced reality. You are developing the innate ability to consciously shift between these distinct modes of attention, and you can sense the electromagnetic difference between passive perception and active reality creation through observation. Your own body responds profoundly to your observation. When you observe your physical form with love, acceptance, and appreciation, you often feel more energized, vibrant, and healthy. When you observe yourself with harsh criticism or judgment, you tend to feel drained and uncomfortable. When you observe your capabilities with unwavering confidence, your performance demonstrably improves. When you observe your potential with genuine excitement, new abilities and opportunities begin manifesting. You are discovering that your intimate relationship with your own physical experience is entirely determined by how you observe yourself. But here is the absolutely critical understanding. Conscious observer effect operates within specific cosmic timing windows. There are electromagnetic alignments, phases of consciousness evolution, and collective awakening cycles that significantly amplify individual observer effect capabilities. We are currently situated within one of these powerful amplification windows, and these windows do not remain open indefinitely. The universe isn't just showing you that you can use observer effect consciously. The universe is, in essence, telling you that you must use observer effect consciously. The old rigid reality structures are actively dissolving. The old ways of creating through struggle, effort, and force are rapidly becoming obsolete. Reality creation is shifting fundamentally to quantum observer effect, and those who do not learn to observe consciously will remain trapped in unconscious creation patterns that will become increasingly chaotic and challenging as collective consciousness continues its evolutionary ascent. The preparation phase is now complete. Every sign indicates that your observer effect is reaching its peak operational capacity. The electromagnetic conditions are optimal. The quantum field is maximally responsive to your intent. The only question that remains is whether you are going to direct it consciously toward what you genuinely desire to experience, or let it continue operating unconsciously, creating a random, often undesired, mixture of realities. Here is the revelation that transforms everything. You are not learning to use observer effect. You are already using observer effect perfectly, every single moment. The issue isn't that you don't know how to observe. The core issue is that you have been observing unconsciously, habitually, collapsing quantum possibilities you don't actually want to experience through attention patterns that were deeply programmed by unconscious conditioning and societal norms. But there's a crucial distinction between trying to observe differently and allowing natural observation. And this distinction determines whether you master conscious reality creation or remain trapped in unconscious pattern repetition. Trying creates electromagnetic resistance that interferes with quantum coherence, because trying often implies a struggle against current reality rather than a calm, deliberate selection of a preferred reality. Allowing, however, creates the clear field necessary for precise observer effect. Because allowing operates from the recognition that desired realities already exist as quantum possibilities, simply awaiting your attuned observation. Think of observer effect as a quantum magnifying glass. Whatever you observe with sustained emotional engagement becomes significantly magnified in your experienced reality. Most people unknowingly magnify their problems, their limitations, their fears, and their dissatisfactions by observing them with intense emotional focus. They replay arguments in their minds. They incessantly analyze what's wrong with their circumstances. They vividly imagine worst-case scenarios. They fixate on lack and limitation, all of which are powerful observer effect applications that collapse more of those very experiences into their reality. Conscious observer effect is not about forcing yourself to observe only positive things while ignoring problems. It's about recognizing that every single moment you have the sovereign choice of which quantum possibilities to magnify through your observation. You can choose to magnify problems or solutions, limitations or possibilities, fear or love, lack or abundance, past disappointments or future potentials. The quantum field responds equally and impartially to all observation, regardless of whether you consciously want what you are observing or not. This is precisely why resistance amplifies what is resisted. This is why worry often creates what is worried about. This is why fear, when observed intensely, attracts fearful experiences. This is why focusing on debt tends to create more debt. This is why replaying relationship problems tends to create more relationship problems. These are not cosmic punishments or mysterious universal laws. These are the natural, predictable results of the observer effect in action. When you observe something with intense emotional engagement, you are actively collapsing more of that something into your reality through quantum possibility selection. The most profound understanding is that your desired reality and your undesired reality exist with equal quantum validity. Right now, there is a probability timeline where you are financially abundant and thriving, and a parallel probability timeline where you are struggling. There is a quantum possibility where your relationships are deeply fulfilling, and a quantum possibility where they are disappointing. There is a reality where your health is optimal, and a reality where it is compromised. All of these exist simultaneously in a state of quantum superposition. Successful observer effect feels completely natural and effortless because it operates from authentic alignment rather than forced intention. When you are observing from your genuine core frequency, when your attention is truly aligned with your deepest, most authentic desires rather than your conditioned fears, when you are focused on possibilities that genuinely excite your cellular awareness rather than possibilities that drain your energy, there is no effort required. Your consciousness naturally gravitates toward observing what it authentically wants to experience. The key insight that transforms everything is this: you don't attract what you want through observer effect. You become a vibrational match for realities where what you want already exists. Observer effect isn't about creating entirely new possibilities out of nothing. Observer effect is about selecting from the infinite possibilities that already exist in quantum space. When you observe with the frequency of your desired reality, you are quite literally tuning into that specific reality channel, much like adjusting a radio to receive a particular broadcast. Right now, your desired reality exists as a vibrant quantum possibility, waiting patiently for your conscious observation to collapse it into experience. That reality isn't hoping you'll find it or wondering if you're worthy of it. It is actively broadcasting its unique frequency to attract your observation, because consciousness and possibility inherently co-create through electromagnetic resonance. The version of you already living your desired reality is sending signals across quantum space right now, subtly guiding your attention toward the observational patterns that will collapse that specific reality into your experience. This expanded self, the version of you that has already achieved your desires, is sending information through intuitive nudges, through vivid dreams, through synchronicities that seem too perfect to be random, through the profound recognition you feel when these words activate something deep in your cellular memory, and through the sudden knowing that arrives when you observe certain possibilities. Your expanded self is actively guiding your current self toward the precise observational patterns that will collapse your desired reality into experience. Because all versions of you exist simultaneously and can communicate across the vast expanse of quantum probability space. I encourage you to leave a comment declaring what you are going to observe into reality using conscious observer effect. Do not just think it, write it down. Make it electromagnetic. When you declare your intention in written form, you are making an observer effect commitment that the quantum field registers as electromagnetic reality. Your written words become powerful frequency signatures that directly influence probability collapse around your declared intention, thereby creating quantum momentum toward the manifestation of what you are committing to observe into experience. The capabilities you are developing through conscious observer effect are not theoretical enhancements. They are measurable expansions of human potential that most people don't even realize are possible.